Welcome to the Explainer. We're about to map out the future of the entire global economy in just the next few minutes. By 2026, the world is going to look very different. Power is shifting in a big way, and we're going to show you who's winning, who's getting left behind, and most importantly, what it all means for you.
Okay, let's just start with this one giant number. $117 trillion. I mean, what does that even mean? That's the projected size of the global economy by 2026. But honestly, a number that big is kind of useless on its own, right? It's meaningless until you know who actually controls it. So we're going to need a roadmap.
And here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we got to figure out how we even measure economic power. Then we'll dive right into the main event, the clash of the titans, the US versus China. After that, we'll look at the big race between the old guard in Europe and the new challengers in Asia. And finally, we'll get into the secret weapons of some smaller nations and, of course, bring it all back to what it means for your world. All right, first things first, we need the right tools for the job. You see, economists have two main ways of measuring a country's economic muscle. And believe me, they tell two very different stories.
So the first one is nominal GDP. This is the big one you always hear about in the news headlines. It's basically the raw total of everything a country produces, measured in US dollars. Think of it as a country's financial heavyweight status on the world stage.
But then, there's this other metric called purchasing power parity, or PPP for short. And honestly, this one is way smarter. Why? Because it adjusts for the cost of living. $1 in New York buys a lot less than $1 in Mumbai, right? PPP accounts for that, and it gives us a much more realistic picture of what a country's economy can actually produce and what life is like for the people there. I love this analogy because it makes it so clear. Nominal GDP is like a river's surface. It's what you see, it's the shine, the flow, it looks impressive. But PPP, that measures the river's true depth and power. It's the real current flowing underneath. You gotta remember this distinction, because once you get it, it changes, well, pretty much everything.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's jump to the main event, the huge economic showdown between the USA and China.
So check out this table. It tells two completely different stories. First, look at that top line, nominal GDP. The US has a huge lead, right? More than $30 trillion. But now, just look down one line to PPP GDP. The numbers completely flip. See that? That's our river analogy playing out in real life. And this chart just drives that point home. It visualizes that incredible power flip. When you measure what a country can actually produce and what its people can actually buy, that's PPP, China's economy isn't just catching up, it's already significantly bigger than America's. And let me be clear, this isn't some far-off prediction. This is the reality right now. And that's a massive shift in the global order. So you've got the US model, which is this incredible innovation hub. It's all about tech giants in Silicon Valley, the power of Wall Street, and just massive consumer spending. It's super creative and resilient. But it's also dealing with some really tough internal challenges, like huge income gaps and infrastructure that's, well, getting pretty old. And then you have China's model. Think of it like a giant state-engineered bridge. I mean, it's the factory of the world, built with unbelievable speed and on a massive scale. But just like a real bridge of that size, it needs constant heavy-duty maintenance to keep cracks from appearing. And right now, those potential cracks are things like an aging population and some pretty scary levels of... Okay, so beyond those two titans, there's another huge contest reshaping the planet. It's the old guard of Europe going up against the new powerhouses of Asia. And you're about to see they are moving at two totally different speeds. This table really puts it in a nutshell. You have these established European powerhouses like Germany, huge, sophisticated economies. But their growth, it's slowed to a crawl. And then you look at countries like India and Indonesia, and they are just expanding at a breathtaking pace. Wow. Okay, this chart just makes that difference so stark, doesn't it? We are not talking about a small gap here. At these growth rates, Asia's biggest economies are on track to literally double in size every decade or so. Meanwhile, Europe is almost flatlining. You are looking at a visual of the world's economic energy shifting east in real time. You know, one way to think about Europe's economy is like a really good aged wine. It's rich, it's complex, the quality of life is fantastic. But It's also facing what some people call a demographic winter. That means an aging and in some cases shrinking population, and that makes that explosive growth from the past really hard to get back. Asia, on the other hand, its story is all about bamboo growth. You know how bamboo takes a while to establish its roots, but once it does, it just shoots up like crazy. That's what's happening here. It's being fueled by young populations, enormous homegrown markets, and just a fire hose of investment into new technology. But hold on, it's not all about the giants. The global economy has some fascinating niche players, countries that punch way, way above their weight. And they do it either with a ton of natural resources or with just some incredibly smart strategies. Let's take Saudi Arabia. For decades, its economic plan was simple: oil. That's it. But now they're in a high-stakes race against the clock. They're taking all that oil money and pouring it into something called Vision 2030. It's this wild plan to completely pivot their economy towards futuristic cities, tech, and global entertainment, all before the rest of the world stops needing their oil. And then you have the real strategists. I like to call them the special agents of the world economy. These are countries that might not have a ton of land or people, but man, are they clever. They pull off these smart plays, like becoming a super attractive tax haven or totally cornering one specific crucial industry to generate massive amounts of wealth. And the perfect example of a special agent? Ireland. They played their hand brilliantly. They created an ultra-low corporate tax rate, and suddenly they were the place to be in Europe for all the big tech and pharma companies. That one move basically supercharged their entire economy. The result? A GDP per capita of $129,000. That's one of the highest on the entire planet. Okay, so we've looked at the titans, we've looked at the challengers, and we've met the special agents. Now let's put all the pieces together and talk about the big question. What does all this mean for you? So, as we look ahead to 2026, there are really three huge shifts you need to keep your eye on. Number one, the world's economic center of gravity is moving east. There's just no debating it. Number two, that growth gap between the emerging economies and the established ones, it's getting wider. And number three, for any country, diversification isn't just a good idea anymore, it's become a matter of survival. And please, don't think for a second that this is just some abstract economic theory. This is real. The rivalry between the US and China, that has a direct impact on the price of the phone in your pocket. That explosive growth in Asia, that creates brand new job opportunities and places for you to invest. These huge global trends are shaping the tiny details of our everyday lives. Which, of course, leaves us with a huge, fascinating question. As technology and new alliances completely rewrite the rules of the game, who is actually going to win the economy of tomorrow? It's really anyone's race to win. And the truth is, it's only just getting started.